Your boss just rewrote your email, changed 3 words, moved a sentence, sent it from their own account. And now you're sitting there staring at your screen, and the thought forming in your head isn't anger, it's something worse. It's, why did I bother? That feeling, that moment where your effort just collapses, is not a bad day at work. That is what micromanagement does. It trains you to stop trying. Most people think micromanagement is just an annoying management style, a personality quirk, a boss who's a little too hands-on. It's not. Micromanagement is a behavioral pattern, and when it reaches a certain depth, it begins to function like control. It shows up as approving every minor decision, requesting updates every hour, hovering behind your screen, demanding to be copied on every email thread regardless of relevance, rewriting work that was already complete, dictating not just what to do, but exactly how to do it, down to the font, the phrasing, the order of the bullet points in a slide no one will read. The hallmark of micromanagement isn't oversight. Oversight is reasonable. Oversight means checking outcomes and course correcting when something drifts. Micromanagement means controlling every step of the process itself, as if the work can only be valid if it passes through one person's hands. And here's what most people don't talk about. The psychological damage unfolds in stages. It doesn't hit you all at once. It builds up without you noticing, and by the time you recognize it, it has already changed how you think. The first thing that goes is ownership. You stop feeling like the work belongs to you. When someone rewrites everything you produce, you eventually stop producing anything with conviction. Why invest effort when the final product won't resemble what you created? You start submitting drafts the way a student submits homework to a teacher they know will mark it wrong regardless. The work becomes a formality, a gesture, not a contribution. Then comes anticipatory anxiety. This is where it gets insidious. You begin editing yourself before your manager even sees the work. Every sentence, every decision, every small judgment call gets filtered through one question. Will they approve of this? You stop thinking about what's effective and start thinking about what won't trigger a correction. Your mental energy shifts from doing the job to predicting your manager's reaction to the job. That is an enormous cognitive tax, and no one accounts for it. After that comes learned helplessness. You've been overridden so many times that initiative starts to feel pointless. Why propose a new approach when it will be dismissed? Why flag a problem when the response will be suspicion, not gratitude? You learn, through repetition, not instruction, that the safest behavior is compliance. Do what you're told. Do it exactly how you're told. Don't improvise. Don't improve. Don't think. Just execute. And somewhere around this point, something strange starts happening in meetings. Your manager asks for ideas and the room goes dead. Not because people don't have ideas, because they've learned what happens when they share them. Someone will suggest a direction, the manager will pause, frown slightly, and then say something like, "That's interesting, but let's do it this way instead." And everyone in the room understands the real rule of the game. Ideas aren't being requested, they're being filtered. So the next time the question comes up, people don't offer solutions, they offer silence. And this is the cruelest stage, because it's the one that follows you home. Competent people begin to feel incompetent. You start second-guessing yourself outside of work, in conversations and decisions that have nothing to do with your job. You wonder if maybe your judgment really is poor. Maybe you do need someone checking everything. Maybe you aren't as capable as you once believed. That is not a management style producing caution. That is identity erosion, and it is one of the most underreported consequences of working under someone who needs to control everything you do. So what drives this behavior? The answer most people reach for, and the one that contains the most truth, is insecurity. Many micromanagers are operating from a deep, often unconscious fear. Fear of being blamed if something goes wrong. Fear of being irrelevant if their team can function without them. Fear of exposure. The kind of fear people rarely admit. This nagging terror that someone might realize they don't actually know how to lead. Control becomes their proof of value. If they touch every deliverable, approve every decision, and insert themselves into every process, then they can point to all of it and say, "I did that. I was essential. Without me, none of this would have happened." And here's the part no one says out loud. Many micromanagers cannot afford to trust their team. Not because the team is untrustworthy, but because trust would reveal how little the manager actually contributes. If the work moves forward without their fingerprints on every step, the question becomes visible. What exactly do you do here? Micromanagement isn't always about making work better. Sometimes it's about making the manager look necessary. And the more unnecessary they secretly feel, the tighter the grip becomes. But intellectual honesty matters. Not every micromanager is wired by insecurity alone. Some are badly trained. They were promoted because they were excellent individual contributors, and nobody taught them that managing people requires a fundamentally different skill set. They manage others the way they manage their own work, with obsessive control over every detail. It's not malice, it's mismatch. Others are under real organizational pressure. Their bosses demand constant updates, instant answers, zero surprises, so they pass that pressure downward, compressing their teams into the same anxious rhythm. They micromanage because they are being micromanaged. It's a chain, and it often starts much higher than anyone realizes. This is where corporate structure enters the picture. Companies that punish mistakes harshly and reward visibility aggressively are factories for micromanagers. When blame flows downward and credit flows upward, managers learn that the only safe position is total control. If something fails, they need to prove they were involved in every step. If something succeeds, they need to claim they directed every move. Delegation becomes a risk. Trusting your team becomes a liability. The organization doesn't explicitly say micromanage your people, but every incentive points in that direction. The system creates the behavior, and then everyone pretends it's a personality flaw. There's a painful paradox buried in all of this. Micromanagers disproportionately target their best people, not the underperformers, not the ones who actually need supervision, the reliable ones, the ones who keep their heads down, the employees who consistently deliver. Why? Because those workers are safe. They won't push back aggressively. They won't cause a scene. They'll absorb the control and keep producing. A micromanager instinctively knows who they can squeeze without consequence, and it's almost never the person who will escalate to HR or make noise in a meeting. It's the person who will adjust without a word, comply without complaint, and resent every minute of it. Meanwhile, the low performer in the next cubicle drifts along with less scrutiny because managing them feels harder and less rewarding. The result is a workplace where the best people are the most suffocated and the people who need guidance the most are left alone. The long-term damage extends well beyond morale. Creativity dies first because creativity requires autonomy and risk, two things micromanagement eliminates by design. Then productivity drops, not because people work less hard, but because they spend more time seeking approval than doing actual work. Trust collapses on both sides, and then something worse happens, something that doesn't show up in any metric. People stop caring. Not loudly, not dramatically. They just slowly pull their effort back and begin operating at the minimum level required to avoid attention. The talented people leave. The rest stay and go numb. And the micromanager interprets the silence as proof that the system is working. So what do you do when you're stuck inside this? There's no magic fix. Anyone promising one hasn't worked under a real micromanager. But there are ways to reduce the friction and to survive it without losing yourself in the process. You start sending updates before they're demanded, not because the manager deserves them, but because it removes the excuse for hovering. You study the patterns, you learn which details they fixate on, and you address those before they become interrogations. You stop waiting to be chased and start controlling the flow of information yourself. That is not submission. That is taking the power dynamic and redirecting it. When you receive a task, you push the conversation toward outcomes. What does success look like? Who is it for? What matters most? The more you anchor a micromanager to results, the harder it becomes for them to obsess over process. You offer checkpoints, pre-agreed moments where they can review progress, so the space between those moments belongs to you. Every one of these moves is the same principle. You are building a structure around someone else's anxiety so it doesn't flood your entire week. But here's the part no one likes to hear. When the entire culture rewards surveillance and punishes autonomy, no amount of tactical communication will fix it. Some organizations are structurally built to produce this behavior. You can manage up, you can adapt, you can protect your clarity, but you cannot single-handedly redesign a system that treats control as a virtue. And recognizing that, clearly, without denial, is not defeat. It's the beginning of an honest decision about what you're willing to accept. Here is what this all comes down to. Micromanagement is almost never about improving the work. The work is usually fine. Often it's good. Sometimes it's better than what the manager would have produced. Micromanagement is about managing fear. Fear of failure, fear of blame, fear of being exposed, fear of being unnecessary. And the person who pays the price for all that fear, the person who absorbs it, adapts to it, and slowly reshapes themselves around it, is never the manager. It's you. And the most dangerous thing about micromanagement isn't that it controls your work. It's that if it goes on long enough, you forget what it felt like to trust yourself.